My name is Opal Henderson, and I'm 73 years old. 3 days ago, my daughter Ruthie drove me to the hospital emergency room, helped me check in for severe chest pain, then walked out the door and never came back. I spent 48 hours in that hospital, admitted overnight for observation, discharged the next afternoon, and my daughter never answered a single phone call, never returned a single text message, never came back to pick me up. The hospital staff finally called me a taxi to take me home because no family member could be reached. But what Ruthie didn't know was that abandoning an elderly person at a hospital is a crime in our state. It's called elder abandonment, and it carries serious penalties. So the next morning after I got home, I went to the police station and left her name with the police. My daughter abandoned me at the hospital, I told the officer at the front desk. She brought me there for chest pain, then left and never came back. I need to file a report. The officer, Officer Geneva Martinez, looked up with immediate concern. Ma'am, when did this happen? 3 days ago, I said. I was in the hospital for 2 days. My daughter never answered my calls. The hospital had to send me home in a taxi because nobody would pick me up. That's elder abandonment, Officer Martinez said seriously. Let me get you to an interview room so we can take your full statement. And as I sat in that police station, preparing to file charges against my own daughter, I realized this was the culmination of years of neglect and emotional abuse that I'd tolerated for far too long. But to understand how I ended up abandoned at a hospital and filing police charges against my own child, I need to take you back to the beginning. I became a mother in 1980 at age 28 when I gave birth to my daughter Ruthie. Her father, my husband Theodore, and I were young, in love, and excited to start our family. Ruthie was a difficult baby. She cried constantly, rarely slept, and demanded attention every moment. As she grew into a toddler and then a child, she remained challenging, strong-willed, demanding, and always wanting things her way. Opal, you're spoiling that girl, Theodore would say when Ruthie was young. She needs discipline. She's just spirited, I defend her. She knows what she wants. Looking back, I realized Theodore was right. I did spoil Ruthie. I gave in to her demands, bought her what she wanted, defended her even when she was wrong. I thought I was being a good mother by being generous and supportive. Instead, I was raising a daughter who learned that she could always get what she wanted from me, and that I would always be there to rescue her from consequences. When Ruthie was a young adult in her 20s, the pattern of our relationship became clear. She would get into trouble, and I would bail her out. She got fired from jobs. I'd pay her rent until she found new work. She got into credit card debt. I'd help her pay it off. She had car problems. I'd loan her money for repairs. Mom, I need $500, Ruthie would call and say. My electricity is getting shut off. Ruthie, this is the 3rd time this year, I'd protest. You need to budget better. I know, Ruthie would say. But I'll lose my apartment if I can't pay. Please, Mom, I'll pay you back. I always gave her the money, and she never paid me back. Theodore disapproved. Opal, you're enabling her. She's 30 years old. She needs to figure out her own finances. She's our daughter, I'd say. We can't let her become homeless. She won't become homeless, Theodore would argue. She'll learn to be responsible if we stop rescuing her. But I couldn't stand the thought of Ruthie struggling. So I kept giving her money, kept bailing her out, kept enabling her irresponsibility. 15 years ago, when I was 58, Theodore died suddenly from a heart attack at age 66. I was devastated. We'd been married for 38 years. He was my partner, my best friend, my rock. Ruthie, then 33, was sympathetic immediately after Theodore's death. She helped with the funeral arrangements, stayed with me for a few days, acted like a supportive daughter. But within a month, she was back to her old patterns. Mom, I'm really struggling financially, Ruthie said a few weeks after Theodore's funeral. I know this is a hard time for you, but I need help with my rent. Can you loan me $1,000? I'd just buried my husband. I was grieving, and my daughter was asking me for money. But I gave it to her anyway. because that's what I always did. Over the next 15 years, from age 58 to my current age of 73, I gave Ruthie thousands and thousands of dollars. I lost count of how much, but it was probably close to $50,000 over the years. "It's just until I get back on my feet," Ruthie would always say. But she never got back on her feet. She just kept needing more money. 5 years ago, I retired from my job as a medical secretary at age 68. I'd worked for 40 years and had a modest retirement savings of about $80,000, plus Social Security of about $1,800 per month. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to live on if I was careful. Ruthie, then age 43, immediately started pressuring me to help her financially even more now that I was retired. "Mom, now that you're retired, you have all this free time and money," Ruthie would say. "Can you help me with my car payment? It's only $300 a month." "Ruthie, I'm on a fixed income now," I'd explain. "I can't afford to pay your bills." "It's not paying my bills," Ruthie would argue. "It's helping your daughter. Isn't that what mothers do?" The guilt trips worked. I started giving Ruthie money regularly, 200 here, 500 there, sometimes 1,000 at a time. My retirement savings slowly dwindled. By the time I was 71, I'd given Ruthie approximately $20,000 from my retirement funds. I had about $60,000 left, and I was worried about making it last for the rest of my life. 2 years ago, at age 71, I finally tried to set boundaries with Ruthie. "Ruthie, I can't keep giving you money," I said during one of her requests for cash. "I'm running out of retirement savings. I need to make what I have last." "Mom, I'm not asking for that much," Ruthie said, annoyed. "Just $500 to cover my electric bill. You have $60,000 in savings. $500 is nothing." "It's not nothing to me," I said firmly. "The answer is no." Ruthie was furious. "Wow, okay. So when I need help, my own mother says no. That's really nice, Mom." "Ruthie, I've been helping you for 25 years, I said. "I've given you tens of thousands of dollars. I can't keep doing it." "You're being selfish," Ruthie accused. "You're sitting on all that retirement money while your daughter is struggling." "What kind of mother does that?" I held firm. The answer is no. Ruthie didn't speak to me for a month after that. She ignored my calls, didn't respond to texts, acted like I didn't exist. I felt guilty and worried. What if she really needed the money? What if something bad happened to her because I said no? But I stuck to my decision. For once, I put my own financial security first. After a month of silence, Ruthie suddenly started contacting me again, but her attitude had changed. She was no longer asking for money. She was cold and distant, treating me like an obligation rather than a loved family member. "Hi, Mom," Ruthie would say when she called. "Just checking in, how are you?" "I'm fine," I'd say, hopeful that we were repairing our relationship. "How are you?" "Busy," Ruthie would say shortly. "Okay, well, I have to go. Talk to you later." The calls were brief, perfunctory, like she was checking a box rather than actually caring how I was doing. When I tried to arrange visits, Ruthie was always too busy. "Can we have lunch this week?" I'd ask. "I'm swamped with work," Ruthie would say. "Maybe next month." Next month never came. I saw Ruthie maybe 4 times in the entire year after I stopped giving her money. Each visit was brief, uncomfortable, with Ruthie acting like spending time with me was a chore. "Ruthie, is something wrong?" I asked during one awkward visit. "You seem distant." "Nothing's wrong," Ruthie said. "I'm just busy with my own life, Mom. I can't be at your beck and call all the time." "I'm not asking you to be at my beck and call," I said, hurt. "I just want to spend time with you. You're my daughter, I miss you." "Well, I'm here now, aren't I?" Ruthie said irritably. "What more do you want?" I wanted the daughter I'd raised and loved for 45 years. But that daughter seemed to have disappeared the moment I stopped giving her money. 3 months ago, I had a minor health scare. I fainted while grocery shopping and was taken to the emergency room by ambulance. The doctors determined I'd fainted due to dehydration and low blood sugar. Nothing serious, but they kept me for observation for several hours. I called Ruthie from the hospital. "Ruthie, I'm at the emergency room. I fainted at the grocery store. Can you come?" "What's wrong?" Ruthie asked, sounding more annoyed than concerned. "The doctors think it's just dehydration," I explained. "But they're keeping me for a few hours. I'd really appreciate it if you could come sit with me." "Mom, I'm at work," Ruthie said. "If it's not serious, I don't think I need to leave. Call me when they release you and I'll pick you up." I felt hurt but tried to understand. "Okay, I'll call when I'm ready to go." 4 hours later, when the hospital discharged me, I called Ruthie again. "Hey, they're releasing me now," I said. "Can you come get me?" "Actually, I just got caught up in something," Ruthie said. "Can you take an Uber home? I'll pay you back for it." She never paid me back. I took an Uber home from the hospital, feeling abandoned and unimportant to my own daughter. But I told myself she was busy with work. I told myself it wasn't personal. I was wrong. 3 days ago, I woke up in the middle of the night with severe chest pain. Sharp, pressing pain in the center of my chest that radiated to my left arm. I knew these were signs of a potential heart attack. I needed to get to a hospital immediately. I called 911 first. Then, while waiting for the ambulance, I called Ruthie. "Ruthie, I'm having severe chest pain," I said when she answered, groggy with sleep. "I've called 911. Can you meet me at the hospital?" "What?" Ruthie said, sounding annoyed at being woken up. "Mom, it's 2 a.m. "I know, but I think I might be having a heart attack," I said, scared. "The ambulance is on its way. I need you to come to the hospital." "Mom, you probably just have heartburn," Ruthie said dismissively. "You always overreact to these things." "The pain is severe," I insisted. "Please come to the hospital." "Fine," Ruthie said with a heavy sigh. "Which hospital?" "St. Mary's," I said. "The ambulance is taking me to St. Mary's." "I'll be there," Ruthie said, then hung up. The ambulance arrived and took me to the emergency room. The paramedics were wonderful, caring, attentive, reassuring me that I'd made the right call seeking help. At the hospital, the ER staff ran tests, EKG, blood work, chest X-ray. They determined I wasn't having a heart attack, but I was having severe angina, chest pain caused by reduced blood flow to the heart. They wanted to admit me overnight for observation and additional cardiac testing in the morning. I waited for Ruthie to arrive. 1 hour passed, then 2 hours, then 3 hours. I called her phone, no answer. I texted her, no response. By 6 a.m., 4 hours after I'd called her, Ruthie finally showed up at the hospital. "Mom, what's going on?" Ruthie asked, looking exhausted and irritated. "They said you're being admitted." "Yes," I confirmed. "I'm having angina. They want to keep me overnight and run more tests tomorrow." "Overnight," Ruthie said, annoyed. "I thought this was just going to be a quick ER visit. I have to work tomorrow." "I'm sorry," I said, hurt by her attitude. "I didn't plan to have chest pain." "Whatever," Ruthie muttered. "So what do you need from me?" "I just need you to take my house keys and purse home so they're safe," I said. "And maybe you could bring me some clothes and toiletries tomorrow when I'm discharged." "Fine," Ruthie said, taking my purse and keys. "I'll come by tomorrow afternoon." She left without giving me a hug, without saying she loved me, without showing any concern for my health. I told myself she was just tired from being woken up in the middle of the night. I told myself she'd be more supportive tomorrow. I was wrong. The next day, the hospital ran more cardiac tests. The results showed some concerning issues with blood flow to my heart. The cardiologist recommended I follow up with a cardiac specialist within the week and prescribed new medications. "Do you have someone who can pick you up?" the discharge nurse asked around 2 p.m. "Yes, my daughter," I said confidently. "She said she'd be here this afternoon." I called Ruthie. No answer. I texted her. "They're discharging me. Can you come pick me up?" No response. I waited an hour, called again, no answer. Waited another hour, called again, still no answer. By 4 p.m., the nurse came back. "Mrs. Henderson, we need to discharge you so we can use the bed for another patient. Is your daughter coming?" "I don't know," I admitted, embarrassed and hurt. "She's not answering her phone." "Do you have anyone else who can pick you up?" the nurse asked gently. I thought about it. I had a few friends, but nobody I felt comfortable asking for a ride from the hospital. My sister lived 3 states away. I had no other family in the area. "I can call a taxi," I said, humiliated. "Let me check with social services," the nurse said kindly. "They might be able to arrange transportation for you." The hospital's social worker, a kind woman named Geneva, came to my room. "Mrs. Henderson, I understand you're having difficulty arranging a ride home," Geneva said. "My daughter was supposed to pick me up, but she's not answering her phone," I explained, trying not to cry. "Do you have another family member or friend who could help?" Geneva asked. "No," I admitted. "It's just my daughter." "Have you been trying to reach her all day?" Geneva asked. "Since yesterday, actually," I said. "She dropped me off at the ER yesterday morning, said she'd come back this afternoon to pick me up, but she hasn't answered any of my calls or texts." Geneva's expression grew concerned. "Mrs. Henderson, how old is your daughter?" 45, I said. "And she brought you to the hospital, but hasn't returned or responded to contact attempts?" Geneva confirmed. "Yes," I said. "Mrs. Henderson, that could be considered elder abandonment," Geneva said gently, "especially if you're dependent on her for transportation and care." "I don't want to get her in trouble," I said quickly. "She's probably just busy with work." "Mrs. Henderson, you've been in the hospital for over 24 hours, Geneva said. "Your daughter knew you were here. She hasn't checked on you or arranged to pick you up. That's not being busy, that's abandonment." I felt tears forming. I didn't want to admit that my own daughter had abandoned me at a hospital, but that's exactly what had happened. "Let me arrange a taxi for you," Geneva said. "And Mrs. Henderson, I want you to consider filing a report with Adult Protective Services. What your daughter did is a form of elder abuse." "I'll think about it," I said, though I knew I probably wouldn't do it. Even after being abandoned, I still wanted to protect Ruthie. The hospital arranged a taxi to take me home. I rode alone, crying quietly in the backseat, wondering how my relationship with my daughter had deteriorated to the point where she'd abandon me at a hospital without a second thought. I spent that night at home, alone, hurt and angry. I still had my hospital discharge papers, my new medications, instructions to follow up with a cardiologist, but no daughter who cared enough to make sure I got home safely. I called Ruthie one more time the next morning. She finally answered. "Hello," Ruthie said, sounding irritated. "Ruthie, why didn't you come pick me up from the hospital yesterday?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Oh, sorry, I got busy," Ruthie said dismissively. "How'd you get home?" "The hospital called me a taxi," I said. "Ruthie, I was in the hospital with chest pain. You left me there for 2 days and never checked on me." "Mom, you're fine," Ruthie said. "You always think you're dying, but it's never serious. I wasn't going to drop everything for another one of your health scares." "I have angina," I said. "The doctors found problems with blood flow to my heart. This was serious." "And you're fine now, right?" Ruthie said. "So I was right not to panic." I felt something inside me break. For 45 years, I'd made excuses for Ruthie. I'd enabled her, rescued her, given her money, tolerated her disrespect and emotional manipulation. And she'd repaid me by abandoning me at a hospital when I needed her most. "Ruthie, what you did is illegal," I said. "It's called elder abandonment, it's a crime." "Oh, don't be dramatic," Ruthie scoffed. "I didn't abandon you. You got home fine, didn't you?" "You're my daughter," I said, tears forming. "I've spent my entire life taking care of you, giving you money, bailing you out of every problem. And when I needed you for one thing, to pick me up from the hospital after chest pain, you couldn't be bothered." "Well, maybe if you hadn't cut me off financially, I'd be more inclined to help you," Ruthie said, and the threat in her voice was clear. She'd finally said it out loud. Her help was conditional on me giving her money. "I'm done, Ruthie," I said. "I'm done being used by you. I'm done being disrespected. I'm done being abandoned." "Fine," Ruthie said. "Don't call me next time you have one of your little health crises. I'm done too." She hung up on me, and I sat in my living room, staring at my phone, realizing that the daughter I'd raised and loved for 45 years cared more about my money than she cared about me. That's when I made my decision. I got dressed, got in my car, and drove to the police station. If Ruthie wanted to treat me like I was disposable, she would face legal consequences for it. The next morning, after Ruthie abandoned me at the hospital, I left her name with the police. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now. Hit that like button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment should Ruthie face criminal charges. Was filing a police report the right choice? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, Australia? Let me know. The morning after Ruthie abandoned me at the hospital, and I filed a police report, Officer Geneva Martinez sat across from me in an interview room taking my detailed statement. "Mrs. Henderson, walk me through exactly what happened," Officer Martinez said, notepad ready. "Start from when you first called your daughter about the chest pain." I told her everything, calling 911 at 2 a.m., calling Ruthie immediately after, her dismissive response, her arriving 4 hours late at the hospital, her taking my purse and keys and promising to pick me up the next day, then not answering any of my calls for over 24 hours. "And you have phone records showing all your attempted calls and texts to your daughter?" Officer Martinez asked. "Yes," I confirmed, pulling out my phone. "I called her 17 times and sent 12 text messages between yesterday morning and this morning. She only answered this morning after I was already home." Officer Martinez photographed my phone screen showing the call log and text messages. "And what did your daughter say when she finally answered?" "She said she got busy and asked how I got home," I explained. "When I told her the hospital had to call me a taxi, she acted like it wasn't a big deal. She said I always think I'm dying, and it's never serious, so she wasn't going to drop everything for another one of my health scares." "But your medical condition was serious," Officer Martinez confirmed, looking at the hospital discharge papers I'd brought. "You were diagnosed with angina and admitted overnight for cardiac testing." "Yes," I said. "The cardiologist found problems with blood flow to my heart. I need to follow up with a specialist within the week." "Mrs. Henderson, did your daughter know you'd been admitted overnight?" Officer Martinez asked. "Yes," I said. "She was there when the ER doctor said they wanted to admit me. She acted annoyed about it." Officer Martinez made notes. "And your daughter has your house keys and purse from the hospital?" "Yes," I confirmed. "She took them yesterday morning and said she'd bring them back when she picked me up, but since she never picked me up, she still has them." "So in addition to abandoning you at the hospital, she has possession of your personal property and hasn't returned it," Officer Martinez said. "That could be an additional charge. Have you asked for your things back?" "I asked this morning when she finally answered," I said. "She said she'd drop them off when she gets around to it." Officer Martinez's expression hardened. "Mrs. Henderson, I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with your daughter. Has this kind of neglect happened before?" I hesitated, then nodded. 3 months ago, I fainted at a grocery store and was taken to the ER. I called Ruthie and asked her to come sit with me. She said she was too busy with work. When I was discharged and asked her to pick me up, she told me to take an Uber home." "Were you injured from the fainting incident?" Officer Martinez asked. "No, just dehydrated," I said, "but I would have appreciated my daughter being there." "Mrs. Henderson, I need to understand the bigger pattern here," Officer Martinez said gently. "Has your daughter been financially dependent on you?" I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment. "Yes, for most of her adult life, I've given her money when she needed it, probably about $50,000 over the years." "And when did you stop giving her money?" Officer Martinez asked. "About 2 years ago," I admitted. "I'm on a fixed retirement income and my savings were running out. I told her I couldn't keep helping her financially. How did she react? Officer Martinez asked. She was furious, I said. She didn't speak to me for a month. After that, our relationship changed. She became cold and distant. She rarely visits or calls unless I initiate contact, and when she does visit, she acts like it's a burden. Officer Martinez made more notes. Mrs. Henderson, it sounds like your daughter's willingness to help you is conditional on whether you're giving her money. When you stopped being financially useful to her, she stopped caring for you. And when you had a legitimate medical emergency and needed her help, she abandoned you. Is that an accurate summary? Hearing it said so bluntly made tears form in my eyes. Yes, that's accurate. Mrs. Henderson, what happened to you is called elder abandonment, Officer Martinez said. Under state law, it's illegal for a caregiver or family member to abandon a vulnerable adult in a situation where the adult needs assistance. Your daughter brought you to the hospital, knew you were being admitted, took your personal belongings, promised to pick you up, then deliberately didn't answer your calls and left you stranded. That's a crime. What happens now? I asked nervously. I'm going to forward this case to our elder abuse unit, Officer Martinez said. A detective will investigate further and determine whether to pursue criminal charges. They'll likely want to interview your daughter and possibly the hospital staff who witnessed the abandonment. Will Ruthie be arrested? I asked, feeling conflicted. That depends on the investigation, Officer Martinez said. But Mrs. Henderson, I want you to understand something. What your daughter did was wrong. And it's not your fault. You didn't cause this by stopping the flow of money. She's an adult responsible for her own actions. If she faces consequences, those are consequences she chose. 2 days after I filed my police report, I received a call from Detective Curtis Foster from the Elder Abuse Unit. Mrs. Henderson, I've reviewed your case, Detective Foster said. I'd like to meet with you to discuss the situation in more detail and gather additional evidence. We met at the police station that afternoon. Detective Foster was a black man in his 50s with a kind but serious demeanor. Mrs. Henderson, I've worked elder abuse cases for 15 years, Detective Foster said. What happened to you is textbook abandonment. I want to build the strongest case possible, which means I need to understand the full history of your relationship with your daughter. Over the next 2 hours, I told Detective Foster everything. Ruthie's history of financial dependence, my decades of giving her money, my decision to stop 2 years ago, the deterioration of our relationship afterward, and finally the hospital abandonment. Mrs. Henderson, do you have any documentation of the money you've given your daughter over the years? Detective Foster asked. Some, I said. Bank statements showing transfers, checks I wrote to her, some text messages where she asked for money. I'll need copies of those, Detective Foster said. They establish a pattern of financial exploitation, your daughter taking money from you for years, then abandoning you when you stopped providing it. Is that relevant to the abandonment charge? I asked. Very relevant, Detective Foster confirmed. It shows motive. Your daughter didn't abandon you because she was genuinely too busy or forgot. She abandoned you as retaliation for cutting off her financial support. That makes the abandonment even more serious. It's deliberate and vindictive, not accidental. Will you need to talk to Ruthie? I asked. Yes, Detective Foster said. I'll be contacting her for an interview. I'll also be interviewing hospital staff to document what happened. And Mrs. Henderson, I need to ask, has your daughter returned your purse and house keys yet? No, I said. She still has them. That's theft by taking, Detective Foster said. She took your property under the pretense of safekeeping, then refused to return it. That's an additional charge we can pursue. I don't know if I want her charged with theft, I said hesitantly. That seems harsh. Mrs. Henderson, your daughter has your house keys, Detective Foster said seriously. She has access to your home. If your relationship is as hostile as you've described, having her in possession of your keys is a safety concern. We need to get those keys back and potentially change your locks. I hadn't thought about it that way. Ruthie had my keys and could enter my house any time she wanted. Given how angry she'd been about me filing a police report, that was concerning. "You're right," I said. "I want my keys back." "I'll make that demand when I contact her," Detective Foster said. That evening, my phone rang. It was Ruthie, and she was furious. "You called the police on me," Ruthie shouted as soon as I answered. "A detective just called asking to interview me about elder abandonment. Are you serious right now?" "Ruthie, you abandoned me at the hospital," I said calmly, though my heart was pounding. "You left me there for 2 days and never came back. That's illegal." "I didn't abandon you," Ruthie yelled. "You got home fine. You're not some helpless old woman who can't take care of herself." "I have a heart condition," I said. "I needed my daughter to pick me up from the hospital after cardiac testing. You promised to come and then ignored my calls for over 24 hours. "Because I was busy," Ruthie insisted. "I have a life, Mom. I can't drop everything every time you have a medical drama." "This wasn't drama," I said firmly. "This was a legitimate emergency. And even if you were busy, you could have answered one of my 17 phone calls to tell me you couldn't come. Instead, you ignored me completely." "Whatever," Ruthie said. "You're blowing this way out of proportion by calling the police. Do you know what this could do to me? I could be charged with a crime. I could lose my job." "You should have thought about that before you abandoned me," I said. "I didn't abandon you," Ruthie screamed. "And if you don't drop these charges, you're going to regret it." "Is that a threat?" I asked, suddenly afraid. "It's reality," Ruthie said coldly. "You want to play hardball by calling the cops on me? Fine, but don't expect me to ever help you with anything again. Don't call me when you're sick. Don't call me when you need something. You're on your own." "Ruthie, I've been on my own since you stopped caring about me 2 years ago," I said. "The only difference now is I'm not pretending we have a relationship." Ruthie hung up on me. I sat there shaking, wondering if I'd made the right decision filing the police report. But then I remembered sitting in that hospital, calling Ruthie over and over, watching the hours pass with no response, finally having to take a taxi home alone after a cardiac emergency. No, I'd made the right decision. Ruthie needed to face consequences. Detective Foster contacted St. Mary's Hospital and interviewed the staff who'd been involved in my care. The discharged nurse, Minnie Washington, gave a statement describing how I'd been unable to reach my daughter for pickup and had seemed distressed and embarrassed about the situation. "Mrs. Henderson tried to call her daughter multiple times while I was in the room," Nurse Washington told Detective Foster, according to the report I later saw. "The daughter never answered. Mrs. Henderson kept apologizing and saying her daughter must be busy. It was clear she felt abandoned and humiliated." The hospital's social worker, Geneva, also gave a statement confirming our conversation about the abandonment and her recommendation that I file a report with Adult Protective Services. When Mrs. Henderson told me her daughter had dropped her at the ER over 24 hours earlier and hadn't responded to contact since, I immediately recognized it as potential elder abandonment, Geneva told Detective Foster. "I informed Mrs. Henderson this could be abuse and recommended she file a report. The fact that the daughter had Mrs. Henderson's purse and keys made the situation even more concerning." Even my ER doctor, Dr. Theodore Green, gave a statement. "I informed the family member, the daughter, that we were admitting Mrs. Henderson overnight for cardiac testing," Dr. Green said. "The daughter seemed annoyed and asked how long it would take. When I explained it could be 24 hours or more, the daughter rolled her eyes and muttered something about having to work. Her reaction was notably lacking in concern for her mother's serious cardiac symptoms." The hospital staff had witnessed Ruthie's dismissive attitude and my eventual abandonment. Their statements corroborated everything I'd reported. 1 week after I filed the police report, Ruthie was formally interviewed by Detective Foster. He recorded the interview, and I later heard portions of it. "Ms. Robinson, can you tell me what happened on the morning of March 15th when your mother called you about chest pain?" Detective Foster asked. "My mother called me at like 2 in the morning saying she had chest pain," Ruthie said, her voice defensive. "She always thinks she's dying. Every little ache and pain is a medical emergency to her. So when she called crying about chest pain, I figured it was another false alarm. But you did go to the hospital, Detective Foster asked. Yeah, after she kept calling and texting, Ruthie said. I finally went to the hospital around 6 a.m. just to check on her. Why did it take you 4 hours to arrive? Detective Foster asked. I don't know, Ruthie said vaguely. I was tired, I got ready, it takes time. Mrs. Henderson says you took her purse and house keys and promised to pick her up when she was discharged, Detective Foster continued. Is that correct? Yeah, she asked me to take her stuff home so it would be safe, Ruthie confirmed. And I said I'd try to come back the next day. You said you'd try, or you said you would come back, Detective Foster pressed. I said I'd come if I could, Ruthie amended. I had work the next day. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it. Mrs. Henderson has phone records showing she called you 17 times and sent 12 text messages trying to reach you about picking her up, Detective Foster said. Why didn't you answer any of those calls or texts? I was busy, Ruthie said. I was at work. I couldn't answer my personal phone. For 24 hours, Detective Foster asked skeptically. You couldn't find even one moment to send a quick text saying you couldn't pick her up. I didn't think it was that urgent, Ruthie said. I figured if the hospital was discharging her, she must be fine. She could get herself home. Ms. Robinson, your mother is 73 years old and had just been treated for a cardiac condition, Detective Foster said. Did you consider that she might need assistance getting home? She's capable of calling a taxi or an Uber, Ruthie said. She's not helpless. Did you know the hospital ended up calling a taxi for her because you never responded? Detective Foster asked. I found out later, Ruthie said, sounding annoyed. And she was fine, so I don't see what the big deal is. The big deal is that you brought your mother to the hospital, took her personal belongings, promised to return, then ignored all her attempts to contact you, Detective Foster said firmly. That's elder abandonment under state law. I didn't abandon her, Ruthie insisted. Abandonment is when you leave someone in danger. My mother wasn't in danger. She was at a hospital. They took care of her and sent her home. I just didn't provide her transportation. That's not a crime. Actually, it is, Detective Foster said. When you bring an elderly person to a medical facility and take responsibility for their care, then deliberately fail to provide promised assistance, that constitutes abandonment. Especially when the person has a serious medical condition and limited ability to arrange alternative transportation. This is ridiculous, Ruthie said. My mother is just mad because I wouldn't drop everything to play chauffeur. She called the police because she's vindictive and wants to punish me. Ms. Robinson, your mother has alleged that you've been financially dependent on her for years and that your relationship deteriorated after she stopped giving you money 2 years ago, Detective Foster said. Is that accurate? Ruthie's voice became defensive. My mother helped me financially sometimes. That's what parents do. It wasn't dependency. How much money did your mother give you over the years? Detective Foster asked. I don't know, Ruthie said evasively. A few thousand here and there when I needed help. Mrs. Henderson estimates she gave you approximately $50,000 over 25 years, Detective Foster said. Does that sound accurate? If she says so, Ruthie said. I didn't keep a running tally. But I never asked her for money she couldn't afford to give. She offered it. And when she stopped giving you money 2 years ago, how did you react? Detective Foster asked. I was hurt, Ruthie admitted. My mom suddenly cut me off when I was going through a hard time. It felt like she didn't care about me. Or did it feel like she was no longer useful to you? Detective Foster suggested. That's not fair, Ruthie protested. Ms. Robinson, multiple witnesses including hospital staff have described your demeanor toward your mother during this incident as cold, dismissive, and lacking in concern, Detective Foster said. Your own recorded statements show you minimized her serious cardiac condition as drama. The evidence suggests you abandoned your mother at the hospital as retaliation for her cutting off financial support. Do you have anything to say to that? I want a lawyer, Ruthie said. The interview ended there. After Ruthie's interview with Detective Foster, she finally returned my purse and house keys, but not directly to me. She left them at the police station with a note. "Here are Mom's things. Tell her to leave me alone." I picked up my belongings from the police station the next day. Everything was there except for one thing. $180 in cash that had been in my wallet was gone. "Detective Foster, there was cash in my wallet," I told him when I noticed. $180, it's not here now." "Did you document that you had that cash before your daughter took your purse?" Detective Foster asked. "I have an ATM receipt from 2 days before I went to the hospital," I said. "I withdrew $200. I'd only spent about $20, so there should have been approximately $180 left." "That's theft," Detective Foster said. "Your daughter took cash from your wallet before returning your belongings. I'll add that to the charges." I felt sick. Not only had Ruthie abandoned me at the hospital, but she'd also stolen money from my wallet while she had my purse. My own daughter. Following Detective Foster's advice, I hired a locksmith to change all the locks on my house. Even though Ruthie had returned my keys, there was no guarantee she hadn't made copies. The locksmith, a kind older man named Porter, asked why I needed the locks changed. "My daughter had my keys," I explained. "We're not on good terms anymore. I don't feel safe with her having access to my house." "I understand," Porter said sympathetically. "I've done a lot of lock changes for elderly folks having problems with family members. It's sad, but sometimes it's necessary for your safety and peace of mind." After the locks were changed, I felt a small sense of relief. At least Ruthie couldn't enter my house unexpectedly. But the emotional damage remained. I'd spent 45 years raising and loving my daughter, and our relationship had deteriorated to the point where I had to change my locks to keep her out. How had it come to this? Before I continue, kindly subscribe now, smash that like button, and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Should Ruthie go to jail? Will there be any reconciliation? Where are you watching from? 3 weeks after I filed the initial police report, Detective Curtis Foster called me with an update. "Mrs. Henderson, I've completed my investigation," Detective Foster said. "I'm forwarding my findings to the district attorney's office with a recommendation to file criminal charges against your daughter." My heart pounded. "What charges?" "Elder abandonment, a felony," Detective Foster said. "Theft by taking for the cash stolen from your wallet, a misdemeanor, and potentially financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, another felony, based on the pattern of taking money from you over the years." "Financial exploitation?" I asked, surprised. "I gave her that money willingly." "Mrs. Henderson, based on my investigation, your daughter systematically took money from you for 25 years under the pretense of temporary need, never paid you back, and when you finally said no, she retaliated by withdrawing emotional support and eventually abandoning you during a medical emergency," Detective Foster explained. "That pattern suggests she was exploiting your generosity and manipulating you emotionally to continue the flow of money. That meets the legal definition, financial exploitation." "How much trouble is she in?" I asked nervously. "If the DA files all charges and your daughter is convicted, she could face up to 7 years in prison for the felonies and up to 1 year for the misdemeanor," Detective Foster said. "Plus fines, restitution, and probation." 7 years. My daughter could go to prison for 7 years. "Mrs. Henderson, I know this is difficult," Detective Foster said gently, "but what your daughter did was serious. She exploited you financially, then abandoned you when you needed her most. Those actions have consequences." "I understand," I said quietly. "What happens next?" "The DA will review my report and decide whether to file charges," Detective Foster said. "If they do, your daughter will be arrested and arraigned. You may be asked to testify at trial if it goes that far. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "This is my daughter. I never imagined I'd be testifying against her in a criminal trial." "You're not testifying against her," Detective Foster corrected. You're testifying about what happened to you. Your daughter made choices that led to this. The responsibility is hers, not yours. 2 weeks later, I received a call from the district attorney's office. The prosecutor handling my case was Assistant District Attorney Minnie Turner, a woman in her 40s who specialized in elder abuse cases. Mrs. Henderson, I've reviewed Detective Foster's investigation, Ada Turner said. I'm filing criminal charges against your daughter Ruth Robinson. The charges are 1 count of elder abandonment, a Class D felony, 1 count of theft by taking, a misdemeanor, and 1 count of financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, a Class C felony. When will she be arrested? I asked. An arrest warrant has been issued, Ada Turner said. She'll be arrested within the next 48 hours and brought in for arraignment. What's arraignment? I asked. It's the first court appearance where your daughter will be informed of the charges against her, advised of her rights, and given the opportunity to enter a plea, Ada Turner explained. The judge will also set bail at that time. Will I have to be there? I asked. Not for the arraignment, Ada Turner said, but you'll need to testify at trial if your daughter doesn't accept a plea deal. Mrs. Henderson, I want you to know that I take elder abuse cases very seriously. What your daughter did to you was cruel and illegal. I intend to prosecute this case to the fullest extent of the law. Thank you, I said, though I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted justice. But part of me still couldn't believe my own daughter was about to be arrested. 2 days later, Ruthie was arrested at her workplace. I found out because she called me from jail, and she was absolutely furious. They arrested me at my job, Ruthie screamed when I answered. In front of my boss and coworkers. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Ruthie, I started. I lost my job, Ruthie continued yelling. They fired me on the spot because I was arrested at work. This is all your fault. You lost your job because you were arrested for abandoning me at a hospital and stealing from me, I said, trying to stay calm. That's not my fault, that's yours. I need you to drop the charges, Ruthie demanded. Call the DA and tell them you don't want to press charges. I can't do that, I said. This isn't a civil case where I can drop charges. These are criminal charges filed by the state. It's out of my hands now. You started this, Ruthie yelled. You went to the police, you can end it. No, Ruthie, I said firmly. You started this when you abandoned me at the hospital. You could have answered my calls. You could have picked me up. You could have been a decent daughter. Instead, you left me stranded and stole money from my wallet. Now you're facing the consequences of your choices. I hate you, Ruthie said, her voice shaking with rage. I will never forgive you for this. I spent 45 years forgiving you for everything, I replied. I forgave you for being irresponsible with money. I forgave you for taking advantage of my generosity. I forgave you for treating me coldly after I stopped giving you cash. But I can't forgive you for abandoning me when I had a heart condition and needed help. Some things are unforgivable, Ruthie. When I get out of here, I'm done with you, Ruthie said. You're dead to me. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long time after that call, crying. My daughter had just told me I was dead to her, and I realized that the daughter I'd raised and loved for 45 years was already gone. She'd been gone since the moment she decided money was more important than our relationship. Ruthie's arraignment was held the next day. I didn't attend, but Ada Turner called me afterward to update me. Your daughter was arraigned this morning, Ada Turner said. She pleaded not guilty to all charges. The judge set bail at $50,000. Can she afford that? I asked. She'd need to post 10%, $5,000, to a bail bondsman, Ada Turner explained. Given that she just lost her job, she may have difficulty coming up with that amount. What if she can't post bail? I asked. Then she'll remain in custody until trial, Ada Turner said. How long until trial? I asked. Probably 3 to 6 months, Ada Turner estimated. Unless your daughter accepts a plea deal, which I'm going to offer. What kind of plea deal? I asked. I'm offering to reduce the charges to 1 count of elder abandonment and 1 count of theft, with a recommended sentence of 3 years probation, community service, restitution to you of the stolen cash plus costs you incurred, and mandatory counseling, Ada Turner said. If she accepts the plea, she'd avoid prison time. But if she insists on going to trial and is convicted, I'll be asking for the maximum sentence, 7 years in prison. Do you think she'll take the plea? I asked. I don't know, Ada Turner admitted. Some defendants take pleas to avoid the risk of trial. Others refuse to accept responsibility and insist on trial even when the evidence against them is strong. We'll have to wait and see what your daughter decides. Ruthie couldn't post bail. According to my sister Estelle, who still had contact with Ruthie despite my situation, Ruthie tried to borrow money from friends and even asked Estelle for the $5,000 needed for the bail bondsman. I told her I couldn't help her, Estelle said when she called to update me. Opal, I know she's my niece, but what she did to you was terrible. I'm not going to bail her out of jail after she abandoned you at the hospital. Thank you for supporting me, I said, grateful for my sister's loyalty. How are you holding up? Estelle asked. It's hard, I admitted. I keep thinking about when Ruthie was little, when she was sweet and loving and looked at me like I was her whole world. I don't know when or how she became the person who could abandon me at a hospital and steal from me. You gave her everything, Estelle said. You spoiled her, rescued her from every problem, gave her money whenever she asked. You created a monster, Opal, and I say that with love, but it's true. I knew Estelle was right. I'd enabled Ruthie's worst behaviors for decades. I taught her that she could treat me however she wanted, and I'd still be there, still giving her money, still forgiving her. I'd taught her that there were no consequences for mistreating me. Until now. 3 weeks after Ruthie's arrest, her public defender, attorney Curtis Brooks, contacted Ada Turner about the plea offer. Ada Turner called to tell me about the conversation. Your daughter's attorney asked me to explain the plea deal in detail, Ada Turner said. I told him, plead guilty to elder abandonment and theft, 3 years probation, 200 hours community service at a senior center, restitution of $180 for the stolen cash, plus $1,500 for your taxi ride and emotional distress, and mandatory counseling for 12 months. What did he say? I asked. He said he'd discuss it with his client, Ada Turner replied. But Mrs. Henderson, he also made a request. He asked if you'd be willing to write a letter to the court supporting leniency for your daughter if she accepts the plea deal. A letter supporting leniency, I repeated, surprised. Yes, Ada Turner confirmed. Basically, a letter saying you forgive your daughter and hope the court will be merciful. Judges sometimes consider victim impact statements when sentencing, even in plea deals. Your daughter's attorney thinks a supportive letter from you might convince the judge to be more lenient, maybe reduce the probation term or eliminate the community service requirement. What do you think I should do? I asked. That's entirely up to you, Ada Turner said. You're under no obligation to write such a letter. Your daughter committed crimes against you. You have every right to ask for the maximum penalty. But if you feel that a more lenient sentence would be appropriate and you'd like to see your daughter get a second chance, you can say that in a letter. I thought about it for a long time after we hung up. Did I want to support leniency for Ruthie? Or did I want her to face the full consequences of her actions? I spent 2 days thinking about whether to write a letter supporting leniency for Ruthie. I prayed about it. I talked to my sister Estelle. I talked to my therapist. Finally, I made my decision. I wrote a letter, but not the letter Ruthie's attorney wanted. Dear Judge, my name is Opal Henderson. I am the victim in the case against my daughter Ruth Robinson, who is charged with elder abandonment, theft, and financial exploitation. I want to address the request from my daughter's attorney that I write a letter supporting leniency. I cannot do that. For 45 years, I enabled my daughter's irresponsible behavior. I gave her money whenever she asked, approximately $50,000 over 25 years. I rescued her from every consequence. I taught her that she could treat me however she wanted, and I would still be there for her. That ended when I retired and realized I couldn't afford to keep supporting her financially. When I told her I could no longer give her money, she became cold and distant. Our relationship deteriorated from weekly visits to barely speaking. Then, when I had severe chest pain and went to the hospital, my daughter abandoned me. She brought me to the emergency room, promised to pick me up when I was discharged, then ignored 17 phone calls and 12 text messages over 24 hours. I had to get home in a taxi arranged by the hospital because my own daughter wouldn't answer my calls. She also stole $180 from my wallet while she had my purse. When I confronted her about abandoning me, she told me that if I hadn't cut her off financially, she would have been more inclined to help me. She made it clear that her willingness to be my daughter was conditional on me giving her money. Your Honor, I love my daughter, but I cannot support leniency for her actions. What she did was cruel and deliberate. She abandoned a 73-year-old woman with a cardiac condition because she was angry about not getting money anymore. If she faces no real consequences for this, she will never change. She will continue to believe she can mistreat people without repercussions. I ask that you impose the full sentence recommended in the plea agreement, including the probation, community service, restitution, and counseling. Perhaps if my daughter is required to work with elderly people through community service, she will develop some empathy for what she put me through. I want my daughter to learn from this. I want her to become a better person, but that won't happen if she's let off easy. Please hold her accountable. Sincerely, Opal Henderson. I sent the letter to Ada Turner, who said she would present it to the judge if Ruthie accepted the plea deal. 1 week later, Ruthie accepted the plea deal. She pleaded guilty to elder abandonment and theft in exchange for the reduced charges and recommended sentence. Ada Turner called to tell me, "Your daughter accepted the plea. Sentencing is scheduled for next month. Your letter will be presented to the judge at that time." "Does Ruthie know I wrote a letter?" I asked. "Her attorney knows," Ada Turner said. "I'm sure he told her, but she doesn't know what the letter says that won't be revealed until the sentencing hearing." "How do you think she'll react when she hears it?" I asked. "Honestly, I think she'll be furious," Ada Turner said. "She probably expected you to write a letter begging the judge to go easy on her. When she hears that you actually asked for the full sentence, it's going to be a shock." I felt nervous about Ruthie's reaction, but I also felt something else: relief. For the first time in 45 years, I'd held Ruthie accountable for her actions instead of making excuses for her. It felt like I was finally being the parent I should have been all along, the parent who enforced consequences instead of enabling bad behavior. The sentencing hearing was held in criminal court 1 month after Ruthie accepted the plea deal. This time, I attended. Ada Turner said my presence might be important. I sat in the gallery as Ruthie was brought into the courtroom. She wore an orange jail jumpsuit. She'd been in custody for almost 2 months because she couldn't post bail. She looked thin and tired. When Ruthie saw me sitting in the courtroom, her face hardened with anger. She wouldn't look at me after that initial glare. The judge, Judge Theodore Washington, a black man in his 60s, reviewed the case file and the plea agreement. "Ms. Robinson, you've pleaded guilty to elder abandonment and theft," Judge Washington said. "Before I impose sentence, does anyone wish to speak?" Ada Turner stood. "Your Honor, the state recommends the sentence outlined in the plea agreement: 3 years probation, 200 hours community service at a senior center, restitution of $1,680, and 12 months of mandatory counseling." "The victim has submitted a letter," Judge Washington said, holding up my letter. "I've read it, and I'll enter it into the record. Ms. Robinson, your mother has written a detailed account of your actions and their impact on her. Would you like to respond?" Ruthie stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to say something." "Go ahead," Judge Washington said. "My mother has portrayed me as some kind of monster," Ruthie said, her voice shaking with emotion. "But the truth is, she's punishing me for not being her personal ATM anymore. When I couldn't give her what she wanted, which was a daughter who would drop everything to serve her, she called the police on me. This whole case is vindictive." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ruthie was still blaming me, still making herself the victim. "Ms. Robinson," Judge Washington said sternly, "your mother's letter states that she gave you approximately $50,000 over 25 years, and that when she stopped giving you money, you withdrew your emotional support. The letter states that you abandoned her at a hospital after promising to pick her up. Are these facts in dispute?" "No, but," Ruthie started. "And you stole money from her wallet while you had possession of her purse, correct?" Judge Washington interrupted. "I borrowed it," Ruthie said weakly. "Without permission," Judge Washington clarified. "That's theft, not borrowing." Ruthie said nothing. "Ms. Robinson, I've read your mother's letter carefully," Judge Washington said. "What strikes me most is not her anger, though she has every right to be angry. What strikes me is her sadness. She writes about loving you for 45 years and being heartbroken that you valued her money more than you valued her. That's devastating." Ruthie's face flushed red, but she remained silent. "Your mother also asks me to impose the full recommended sentence," Judge Washington continued. "She writes that leniency will not teach you accountability. She believes consequences are necessary for you to change. And frankly, I agree with her." Judge Washington picked up his gavel. "Ruth Robinson, I hereby sentence you to 3 years supervised probation, 200 hours of community service to be performed at a senior center or elder care facility, restitution to your mother in the amount of $1,680, and 12 months of mandatory counseling focusing on family relationships and financial responsibility." The gavel came down. "Furthermore," Judge Washington added, "I'm adding one additional condition to your probation. You are prohibited from contacting your mother except with her express written permission. If you violate this no-contact order, you will be arrested and your probation will be revoked." Ruthie's face went pale. "I can't contact my mother at all." "Not unless she gives written permission," Judge Washington confirmed. "Your mother filed this case because you abandoned her when she needed help. She deserves to be left alone unless and until she decides she wants contact with you." "But she's my mother," Ruthie protested. "Then you should have treated her better," Judge Washington said. "Ms. Robinson, you have shown through your actions that your relationship with your mother was conditional on her giving you money. When the money stopped, you stopped being a daughter. Now you've lost the right to contact her at all unless she chooses to allow it. Maybe that will teach you the value of family relationships." Ruthie was led out of the courtroom, and I sat there feeling a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, vindication, and grief. Justice had been served, but the daughter I'd raised was going to prison probation, and our relationship was likely destroyed forever. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now, smash that like button, and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Was the sentence fair? Will they ever reconcile? Where are you watching from? 6 months after Ruthie was sentenced to probation, community service, and a no-contact order, I was finally beginning to heal from the trauma of being abandoned by my own daughter. Ruthie had been released from jail after sentencing and was now serving her probation. According to updates from Ada Turner, Ruthie was complying with all the terms, working at a senior care facility for her community service hours, attending mandatory counseling, and paying monthly restitution installments of $140 toward the $1,680 she owed me. But the most important term, the no-contact order, was the one that gave me the most peace. For the first time in 45 years, I didn't have to worry about Ruthie calling to ask for money, showing up unannounced, or making me feel guilty for not helping her. I was free. Shortly after Ruthie's sentencing, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Geneva Martinez, who specialized in family trauma and codependency. "Mrs. Henderson, tell me about your relationship with your daughter," Dr. Martinez said during our first session. I told her everything: 45 years of giving Ruthie money, bailing her out of problems, making excuses for her behavior, and tolerating emotional manipulation because I didn't want to lose my daughter. "You were in a codependent relationship," Dr. Martinez said gently. "You enabled your daughter's irresponsibility because you confused enabling with loving, and your daughter learned to exploit that. I thought I was being a good mother, I said, tears forming. I thought loving my child meant always being there for her, always helping her, always forgiving her. Being there for your child is good, Dr. Martinez said. But there's a difference between supporting someone and enabling them. Support means helping someone help themselves. Enabling means doing things for them that they should be doing for themselves, which prevents them from developing independence and responsibility. So I created the monster that abandoned me, I said bitterly. You created the pattern, Dr. Martinez clarified. But your daughter is an adult responsible for her own choices. She chose to abandon you at the hospital. She chose to steal from you. She chose to make her love conditional on money. Those were her choices, not yours. Over the following months, therapy helped me understand several important things. Lesson 1, boundaries are love. Setting boundaries with Ruthie, saying no to giving her more money, wasn't cruel or unloving. It was necessary for both of our well-being. Lesson 2, I can't control other people's reactions. When I set boundaries, Ruthie responded with anger and withdrawal. That was her choice. I couldn't control how she reacted to my boundaries, only whether I maintained them. Lesson 3, forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I could forgive Ruthie for abandoning me without allowing her back into my life. Forgiveness was about my own healing, not about restoring a toxic relationship. Lesson 4, I deserve respect. For decades, I'd accepted disrespect from Ruthie because I was afraid of losing her. Therapy helped me realize I deserved to be treated with dignity, even especially by my own daughter. Mrs. Henderson, you spent 45 years prioritizing your daughter's needs over your own well-being, Dr. Martinez said during one session. Now it's time to prioritize yourself. With Ruthie out of my life, due to the no-contact order, I had time and emotional energy to focus on myself for the first time in decades. I joined a local senior center and participated in activities I'd always wanted to try but never had time for: painting classes, book clubs, chair yoga. Mrs. Henderson, you're very talented, my painting instructor said after one class. Have you painted before? Not since I was in high school, I admitted. I always wanted to paint more, but I was busy raising my daughter and working. Well, you're painting now, the instructor said with a smile. Better late than never. I also reconnected with friends I'd neglected over the years, because I'd been so focused on Ruthie and her endless crises. My friend Minnie, whom I'd known since we worked together 30 years ago, invited me to lunch one day. Opal, I have to tell you something, Minnie said. I'm proud of you for what you did. Filing charges against Ruthie took courage. Thank you, I said. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I know it was, Minnie said. But Opal, many of us who knew you back when Ruthie was younger, we could see what was happening. We could see how she took advantage of you. We wanted to say something, but we didn't know how. You saw it, I asked, surprised. Everyone saw it, Minnie said. Ruthie would call you constantly asking for money. You'd leave work to deal with her emergencies. You'd cancel plans with friends because Ruthie needed something. We watched you give and give and give while she took and took and took. Why didn't anyone say anything? I asked. Because you seemed to think it was normal, Minnie said. You acted like that's just what mothers do for their children. And maybe for minor children, yes. But Ruthie was an adult. She should have been taking care of herself. I realized that my codependent relationship with Ruthie had been visible to others, even when I couldn't see it myself. 4 months into Ruthie's probation, I received a letter from her. It came through her probation officer. The no-contact order prohibited direct contact, but supervised written communication was allowed if I consented. The probation officer called first. Mrs. Henderson, your daughter has written you a letter. She's asking permission to send it to you. You're under no obligation to read it if you don't want to. What kind of letter is it? I asked. I've reviewed it as required, the probation officer said. It's an apology letter. She's not asking for anything. She's not trying to manipulate. It seems genuine, but ultimately whether you read it is your choice. I thought about it for several days. Part of me didn't want to hear from Ruthie at all. Part of me was curious about what she had to say. Finally, I told the probation officer I'd accept the letter. It arrived a week later. Dear Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you might not even read this letter, but I need to write it anyway. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for abandoning you at the hospital. I'm sorry for ignoring your calls when you needed me. I'm sorry for stealing money from your wallet. I'm sorry for treating you like an ATM instead of my mother. The past 4 months have been the hardest of my life. I've been working at Sunset Senior Care doing my community service, and every day I see elderly people who are kind, dignified, and deserving of respect. I help them with activities, sit with them during meals, listen to their stories. And every day, I think about how I treated you. One resident, Mrs. Foster, she's 76, told me about her daughter who never visits because she's too busy. Mrs. Foster cried when she told me. She said she gave her daughter everything, and now she's alone. I realized I'm that daughter. I'm the daughter who was too busy for her mother, too busy to answer phone calls, too busy to pick you up from the hospital, too busy to show basic human decency. My counselor has been helping me understand why I behaved the way I did. She says I had a sense of entitlement. I felt like you owed me money because you're my mother. When you stopped giving me money, I felt betrayed, like you'd broken some kind of contract. So I punished you by withdrawing my affection and eventually abandoning you. That was wrong, so wrong. You didn't owe me money. You'd already given me more than I deserved, not just money, but love, support, forgiveness, and endless second chances. And I repaid you by abandoning you when you had chest pain. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I just want you to know that I finally understand what I did, and I'm sorry. If you never want to speak to me again, I understand. But if someday, maybe years from now, you decide you want contact, I'll be here. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the daughter you deserved all along. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't show it. Ruthie. I read the letter 3 times, crying through all 3 readings. It was the first time Ruthie had ever taken full responsibility for her actions without making excuses or blaming me. Was the apology genuine? I didn't know. People can write convincing letters. The real question was whether Ruthie would actually change her behavior. I decided to write back, not to reconcile, but to acknowledge her apology. Ruthie, I received your letter. Thank you for apologizing. I want you to know that I loved you from the moment you were born. I would have given you anything. But over the years, I gave you too much and you came to expect it. When I finally set a boundary, telling you I couldn't give you money anymore, you responded with anger and withdrawal. That hurt me deeply, but nothing hurt as much as you abandoning me at the hospital. I'm glad your community service and counseling are helping you see things differently. I'm glad you're meeting elderly people like Mrs. Foster and developing empathy. That's good. But Ruthie, an apology letter isn't enough to repair what's been broken. Change takes time. It takes consistent action, not just words. I'm not ready to have contact with you beyond these letters. Maybe someday I will be, but right now, I need to focus on my own healing. I hope you continue to grow and change. I hope you become the person you say you want to be, but I need you to do that for yourself, not for me. Take care of yourself. Mom. I sent the letter through the probation officer. I didn't know if Ruthie would write back, and I didn't know if I wanted her to. But I'd said what I needed to say. 1 year after Ruthie was sentenced, her probation officer called me with an update. Mrs. Henderson, I wanted to inform you that your daughter has completed her 200 hours of community service, the probation officer said. She's also been attending counseling regularly and paying her restitution on time. She has 2 years of probation remaining, but she's complying with all terms. That's good, I said. There's something else, the probation officer continued. Your daughter has asked if you'd be willing to meet with her in person. It would be supervised, I'd be present, and it would be at my office. She says she wants to apologize to you face to face. I don't know, I said honestly. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." "You're under no obligation to meet with her," the probation officer said. "The no-contact order remains in effect unless you give written permission to modify it. Take your time deciding." I talked to Dr. Martinez about it in therapy. "Do you want to meet with your daughter?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Part of me does," I admitted. "Part of me wants to see if she's really changed, but part of me is scared that she's just going to manipulate me again." "What would you need from her to feel safe meeting with her?" Dr. Martinez asked. I thought about it. I'd need the meeting to be supervised. I'd need her to understand that meeting once doesn't mean we're reconciled. I'd need her to respect my boundaries. "Those are reasonable requirements," Dr. Martinez said. "If you decide to meet with her, make those conditions clear up front." After much consideration, I agreed to one supervised meeting with Ruthie. The meeting was held at the probation office. The probation officer was present, sitting quietly in the corner taking notes. Ruthie arrived looking very different from the last time I'd seen her at sentencing. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost in jail. She looked healthier, more put together. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Hi, Mom," Ruthie said quietly. "Hello, Ruthie," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. We sat across from each other at a small table. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Ruthie finally said. "I know you didn't have to." "Why did you want to meet?" I asked. "Because I needed to apologize to you in person," Ruthie said. "I needed to look you in the eye and tell you how sorry I am for what I did." "You already apologized in your letter," I said. "I know," Ruthie said, "but a letter isn't enough. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I stole from you. I treated you like garbage after you'd spent your whole life taking care of me. I need you to see that I understand how wrong that was." "Do you understand why it was wrong?" I asked. "Not just that it was illegal, but why it was fundamentally wrong." Ruthie nodded, tears spilling over. "Because you're my mother. You gave birth to me, raised me, loved me unconditionally for 45 years. And I took all that for granted. I thought you'd always be there no matter how I treated you. I thought your love was unlimited and unconditional, so I didn't have to earn it or deserve it." "And what do you understand now?" I asked. "I understand that love has to be mutual," Ruthie said. "I can't just take and take and take without ever giving back. I can't treat you badly and expect you to keep loving me anyway. I understand that I broke your trust, and trust isn't something you can fix with an apology. It has to be rebuilt through consistent, changed behavior over time." I studied my daughter's face, trying to determine if this transformation was real or just manipulation. "Ruthie, I want to believe you've changed," I said slowly. "But I've been hurt too many times. I've forgiven you too many times for too many things. This time, words aren't enough." "I know," Ruthie said. "And I'm not asking you to forgive me or let me back into your life. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry and that I'm trying to be better." "Why are you trying to be better?" I asked. "Is it because you're on probation and you have to? Or is it because you genuinely want to change?" "Both," Ruthie admitted. "At first, it was because I had to. I resented the community service, the counseling, all of it. But after a few months of working at the senior care facility, something changed. I started actually caring about the residents. I started seeing myself in the daughters and sons who neglect their elderly parents. And I realized I didn't want to be that person anymore." "What about the money?" I asked. "Are you still angry that I stopped giving you money?" "No," Ruthie said. "My counselor helped me understand that you had every right to set that boundary. You're on a fixed income. You couldn't afford to keep supporting me financially. I should have been supporting myself all along." "And if I never give you money again?" I asked. "If we someday reconcile, but it's with the understanding that I will never be your financial backup again, can you accept that?" "Yes," Ruthie said without hesitation. "Mom, I don't want your money. I want a relationship with you. A real relationship, not one based on financial transactions." I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but a tiny opening of possibility. "Ruthie, I'm not ready to reconcile with you," I said. But I'm willing to stay in limited contact through letters supervised by your probation officer. If you continue to show through your actions that you've changed, maybe in a year or two, we can talk about rebuilding a relationship." "I'll take that," Ruthie said, fresh tears falling. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for not completely giving up on me." "I'm your mother," I said. "I'll always hope you become the best version of yourself, but I'm also a person who deserves respect and dignity. I won't accept being treated badly ever again." "I understand," Ruthie said, "and I won't ask for more than you're willing to give." The meeting ended there. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a first step toward the possibility of healing. 2 years after Ruthie abandoned me at the hospital, I'm 75 years old and living my best life. Ruthie successfully completed her probation. She's been working steadily at the senior care facility. They hired her permanently after her community service ended because she'd become such a valued employee. She's paid back the full $1,680 in restitution. She's continued counseling even after it was no longer required. And she's respected my boundaries, never asking for money, never pressuring me for more contact than I'm comfortable with. We exchange letters every few months. We've had 2 more supervised meetings. We're not fully reconciled, we're not back to being close, but we're in a place of cautious, boundaried connection. "How's your mother?" Ruthie's supervisor at the senior care facility asked her once, according to a letter Ruthie sent me. "We're rebuilding our relationship," Ruthie told her supervisor. "Slowly, carefully, with a lot more respect than I showed her in the past." "That's good," her supervisor said. "She must be proud of the work you're doing here." "I hope so," Ruthie said. "I'm trying to make up for lost time." As for me, I'm thriving. I've joined a support group for people who have experienced family financial exploitation. I've become an advocate for elder abuse awareness in my community. "Mrs. Henderson, would you be willing to speak at our elder abuse prevention workshop?" A representative from the area agency on aging asked me. "Your story could help other seniors recognize warning signs." I agreed, and I gave my first public talk about what happened to me. "My daughter took advantage of my generosity for 25 years. I told a room full of seniors and their family members. When I finally set a boundary, she retaliated by abandoning me at a hospital. I filed police charges because what she did was illegal and wrong. But the most important thing I learned," I continued, "is that it's never too late to set boundaries. I was 73 when I finally said enough. Some people told me I was too old, that I should just accept the situation. But I refused. And by standing up for myself, I not only got justice, I also saved my own life. If you're being exploited by family members, if you're being treated with disrespect, if you're being taken advantage of, it's not too late to say no," I concluded. "It's not too late to demand better treatment. It's not too late to file charges if crimes have been committed. You deserve dignity and respect, no matter how old you are." Several people came up to me after the talk to share their own stories. One woman, crying, told me her son had been financially exploiting her for years and she didn't know how to stop it. "Start by talking to someone," I told her. "Adult Protective Services, the police. An attorney. Don't suffer in silence. There are people who can help." I'm Opal Henderson, 75 years old, and 2 years ago my daughter Ruthie abandoned me at a hospital after I went in with severe chest pain. She brought me to the emergency room, promised to pick me up when I was discharged, then ignored 17 phone calls and 12 text messages over 24 hours. I had to take a taxi home from the hospital because my own daughter wouldn't answer my calls. The next morning, I went to the police station and left her name with the police. "My daughter abandoned me at the hospital," I told them. "I need to file a report." That decision to report what Ruthie had done changed everything. She was investigated, arrested, charged with elder abandonment and theft, and ultimately sentenced to probation, community service, restitution, and counseling. Was it the right decision? Yes, absolutely yes. Ruthie needed consequences. She needed to learn that exploiting and abandoning her elderly mother wasn't acceptable. and I needed to learn that I deserved better treatment than what I'd been accepting for decades. Did filing charges destroy my relationship with Ruthie? Not exactly. It destroyed the toxic, codependent relationship we'd had. But it created space for a healthier relationship to potentially develop, one based on mutual respect rather than financial transactions. Will Ruthie and I ever be truly close again? I don't know. Maybe someday. But I'm no longer willing to sacrifice my own well-being for the sake of keeping my daughter in my life. I've learned that setting boundaries is an act of self-love, not selfishness. I can't control how others react to my boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I deserve respect, even from family members. It's never too late to demand better treatment. My daughter abandoned me at the hospital. The next morning, I left her name with the police. And by doing so, I saved myself, not just from one incident of abandonment, but from a lifetime pattern of accepting mistreatment. I'm 75 years old, and I'm finally living life on my own terms. I have friends, hobbies, purpose. I'm respected in my community. I'm an advocate for other seniors experiencing family exploitation. And if Ruthie continues to demonstrate through consistent actions that she's changed, maybe someday we'll rebuild our relationship. But it will be a new relationship with clear boundaries, mutual respect, and no financial entanglement. Ruthie learned a hard lesson. Abandoning your mother has consequences. And I learned an important lesson. It's never too late to stand up for yourself and demand the respect you deserve. My daughter abandoned me. I reported her. She faced consequences, and we both got the opportunity to become better people. That's not the ending I would have written for our story, but it's the ending we needed. 2 years later, Opal thriving and RUTHIE transformed. 6 months after sentencing, Opal healing from trauma, Ruthie complying with probation terms, working at senior care facility for community service, attending counseling, paying $140 month restitution. No contact order gave Opal peace. First time in 45 years didn't have to worry about Ruthie asking for money, showing up unannounced, making her feel guilty. I was free. Started therapy with Dr. Geneva Martinez, specializing in family trauma. You were in codependent relationship. Enabled daughter's irresponsibility, confused enabling with loving. Daughter learned to exploit that. Therapy taught. 1, boundaries are love. 2, can't control others' reactions. 3, forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. 4, deserve respect. Opal joined senior center, painting, book clubs, yoga, friend mini. We could see how Ruthie took advantage. She'd call constantly for money. You'd leave work for emergencies, cancel plans. We watched you give while she took. 4 months into probation. Letter from Ruthie through probation officer. I'm sorry for abandoning you, ignoring calls, stealing, treating you like ATM. Past 4 months hardest of life. Working at Sunset Senior Care. See elderly people who are kind, dignified, deserving respect. Every day think about how I treated you. One resident, Mrs. Foster, 76, told me about daughter who never visits, too busy, Mrs. Foster cried. Realized I'm that daughter. Too busy to answer calls, pick you up, show basic decency. Counselor helping me understand I had entitlement, felt like you owed me money because you're my mother. When you stopped, felt betrayed, punished you by withdrawing affection then abandoning you. That was wrong. You didn't owe me money, already gave more than deserved. I repaid by abandoning you with chest pain. Don't expect forgiveness, just want you to know I understand. If you never want contact, I understand. But if someday you want contact, I'll be here. Spend rest of life trying to be daughter you deserved. Love you, Mom. Opal read 3 times crying. First time Ruthie took full responsibility without excuses or blaming. Wrote back, I loved you from birth, would have given anything. But gave too much, you came to expect it. When I set boundary, you responded with anger. Nothing hurt as much as hospital abandonment. Apology letter isn't enough. Change takes time and consistent action, not words. Not ready for contact beyond letters. Need to focus on MY healing. Hope you continue to grow, but do it for yourself, not me. 1 year after sentencing, probation officer called. Ruthie completed 200 hours community service. Attending counseling, paying restitution on time. 2 years probation remaining. She's asked if you'd meet in person, supervised at my office, wants to apologize face-to-face. After therapy discussion, Opal agreed to one supervised meeting. At meeting, Ruthie looked healthier. Thank you for agreeing. Needed to apologize in person. Look, you and I. Opal. Why? Ruthie. Because I abandoned you when you needed me. Stole from you. Treated you like garbage after you spent life taking care of me. Opal. Do you understand why it was wrong? Ruthie crying. Because you're my mother. Raised me, loved me unconditionally 45 years. I took for granted. Thought you'd always be there no matter how I treated you. Thought love was unlimited and unconditional, so didn't have to earn or deserve it. Now understand love must be mutual. Can't just take without giving back. Broke your trust. Trust isn't fixed with apology but rebuilt through consistent changed behavior over time. Opal. Words aren't enough. Ruthie. I know, not asking forgiveness or to be let back in life, just asking you to know I'm sorry and trying to be better. Why trying? Ruthie. At first because I had to resented community service counseling, but after months at senior facility, something changed. Started caring about residents, seeing myself in daughters' sons who neglect elderly parents. Realized didn't want to be that person. What about money? Ruthie. Not angry you stopped giving. Counselor helped me understand you had right to set boundary. You're on fixed income, couldn't afford to keep supporting me. I should have been supporting myself. If I never give money again. Ruthie, I accept that. Don't want your money, want relationship. Real relationship not based on financial transactions. Opal felt tiny opening of possibility. Not ready to reconcile but willing to stay in limited contact through supervised letters. If you continue showing through actions you've changed, maybe in a year or two we can talk about rebuilding. Ruthie, I'll take that. Thank you for not giving up on me. Opal, I'm your mother, will always hope you become best version. But I'm also person who deserves respect. Won't accept being treated badly ever again. 2 years later, at 75, Opal thriving. Ruthie completed probation successfully. Facility hired her permanently after community service. Paid back full $1,680 restitution. Continued counseling even after not required. Respected boundaries, never asking for money, never pressuring for more contact. They exchanged letters every few months, had 2 more supervised meetings. Not fully reconciled, but in place of cautious, boundaried connection. Opal joined support group for family financial exploitation victims, became advocate for elder abuse awareness, gave public talk. Daughter took advantage 25 years. When I set boundary, she RETALIATION by abandoning me. I filed charges because what she did was illegal and wrong. Most important lesson, never too late to set boundaries. I was 73 when I said enough. By standing up for myself, got justice and saved my own life. If you're being exploited, disrespected, taken advantage of, not too late to say no. Not too late to demand better treatment. Not too late to file charges. You deserve dignity and respect no matter how old you are. Woman approached crying. My son has been exploiting me for years. Opal. Start by talking to someone, adult protective services, police, attorney. Don't suffer in silence. At 75, Opal living life on own TRMS, friends, hobbies, purpose, respected in community, advocate for seniors. If Ruthie continues demonstrating change, maybe someday rebuild relationship, but new relationship with clear boundaries, mutual respect, no financial entanglement. Ruthie learned. Abandoning mother has consequences. I learned. Never too late to stand up for yourself and demand respect you deserve. This story proves that it's never too late to set boundaries, even at 73. Elder abandonment is a crime with serious consequences. Enabling creates monsters. Boundaries create respect. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. Changed behavior, not apologies, rebuilds trust. Filing charges can save your life and dignity. You deserve respect from family members. Healing is possible, even after profound betrayal. If this story inspired you, please subscribe to this channel for more justice stories. Smash that like button. Turn on notifications for new content. Drop a comment. Would you have filed charges against your child? Is Ruthie's transformation genuine? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, South Africa, Australia, Trinidad, India, Philippines? Let me know. Remember, if family member abandons you during medical emergency, report IT. Elder abandonment is crime. Document everything, call logs, texts, and hospital records. Contact adult protective services and police. Don't suffer in silence. Age doesn't mean you should accept mistreatment. Set boundaries even with family. Enabling isn't love, boundaries ARE. It's never too late to demand respect. Don't be afraid to hold family accountable. You deserve dignity. Opal's daughter abandoned her at hospital with cardiac condition. Next morning, Opal filed police report. Ruthie arrested, charged with elder abandonment and theft, sentenced to 3 years probation, 200 hours community service, restitution, counseling, and no contact order. 2 years later, Ruthie transformed through community service working with elderly, genuinely changed. Opal thriving independently with boundaries. They're cautiously rebuilding relationship with respect. Opal became advocate helping other seniors. Proved it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Thank you for following this powerful journey from abandonment to justice to cautious healing. Until the next story, set boundaries, demand respect, and never accept mistreatment from anyone.